academic event, as you can see from the slide itself, it is divided into two sections. It's the first part of the research collaboration network dialogue, consisting of our three distinguished visitors from the University of Central Florida, Professor Meehan, Professor Sandra Sousa, and Dr. Amrita Ghosh. So welcome. Along with that, we also have Christian. I'm sorry if the pronunciation is not correct. Christian Stevenson, husband of Dr. Amrita Ghosh, Dr. Prakash Ghosh.
Deva Prakash, please. Dr. Deva Prakash.
Oh, sorry.
Call me
Dr. Deva Prakash Ghosh and Mrs. Chitralekha Ghosh, I beg your pardon, parents of Dr. Amrita Ghosh. And we also have with us the friend of Amrita, Anindya. So welcome all of you to the Institute of Language Studies and Research. Before we move on to the academic event, which, as I said, divided into two, first we'll have the research collaboration network dialogue, followed by the conversation with Dr. Amrita Ghosh on the subject of conflictual borderlands, understanding the shadow lines and the hinterlands. But before we move, I request our Institute Director, Dr. Shati Goh, to formally greet our visitors.
Thank you.
Thank you. We thank Kainath and Krishna Sinjini, our PhD research scholars, for their help. Now, Dr. Kuho will just say a few words in terms of the welcome address.
Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome and thank Professor Amrita Ghosh, Professor Meehan, and Professor Sandra Sousa from the University of Central Florida. They have came all the way from USA to Kolkata in their cultural research tour, and we are privileged to host them today here for a research dialogue. Thank you, sir. We also warmly welcome Christian, I just don't know the real pronunciation, Christian Stevenson, husband of Amrita Ghosh, and Dr. Deva Prakash Ghosh and Mrs. Chitralekha Ghosh, parents of Amrita Ghosh, and Anindya, friend of Dr. Amrita Ghosh, for coming to our institute, and we are grateful to them as well for their precious presence. We are privileged and honored to have all of them today in this academic event. We once again extend our warm greetings to everyone in the audience. The Institute of Language Studies and Research, ILSR Kolkata, is a premier center for excellence, disseminating advanced knowledge in language studies, translation, and cultural research. ILSR is directly affiliated to the Department of Higher Education, Government of West Bengal. While pursuing the highest global academic standards, this institute envisions itself as a facilitator of advanced research and employment by leveraging various opportunities offered by the emerging global knowledge and communication economy and cultural research. As a part of our ongoing research and future academic work, ILSR regularly organizes different academic events like invited talks, symposium, research dialogues, as well as collaborative research conversation, etc. Over the years, we have invited distinguished faculty members from different national and international institutes of repute, and we invited our distinguished guest from University of Central Florida today in that spirit of academic exchange and knowledge transfer. And we look forward to hearing from them in more details in the course of the day. We sincerely hope that today's event will enlighten us and it will enhance possibilities of collaborative and collective research. We thank you once again and we look forward to the academic proceedings now. Thank you all. Over to Professor Anindya Sekhar Purakayastha.
Thank you, Dr. Puru, for the welcome note. Now, we move to the proceedings today, which is, as I said, the Research Collaboration Network Dialogue, which would be between us and Professor Kevin Meehan, Dr. Sandra Sousa, and Dr. Amrita Ghosh. We'll be talking about different possibilities of a dialogue so that we can think of a research collaboration network. I had it, I'll do that, no problem. Research collaboration network in terms of post-colonial studies, global network of post-colonial studies. And Professor Kevin Meehan and Professor Sandra Sousa have expertise on Caribbean studies and Portuguese studies, and they are also engaged in research related to post-colonial studies, environmental humanities, gender studies, I mean the broad spectrum of work that you are all engaged in. And Amrita is of course well versed and quite having a big command over the post-colonial studies domain because she did her research and studies in the field of post-colonial studies. So before we move on to the possibilities of having a global post-colonial studies network which you proposed, I think a brief description, curtain raise of the kind of institute that we have at ILSR would help to take the conversation forward. And to do that, I will just show some slides which will help you to give an overview of this. So the Institute of Language Studies and Research is a research institute directly affiliated to the Department of Higher Education, Government of West Bengal. It is commonly known as ILSR, and it has got three schools. One is the School of Linguistic Studies, the other one is the School of Languages, and the next one is the School of Translation and Cultural Studies. So from the name itself, you can understand that the Linguistic Studies School is focusing on different aspects of social linguistics, other theoretical issues, and empirical issues related to linguistic studies. And I have my colleague, Professor Amrita Ghosh, who is in charge of the School of Linguistics. And we also have Dr. Rajiv Chakraborty. Rajiv, could you please say hello?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, so Dr. Rajiv Chakraborty is also part of the Linguistic Studies School. And then we have the School of Languages. Currently, we have Dr. Guho, who also has Bangla literature as her background of studies. And we have Mr. Sripati Tudu. Sripati, could you please? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So Sripati Tudu is also part of the School of Languages. Sripati did something remarkable recently. He translated the Indian Constitution in the Santali language, and that has become a big news because Santali is, in that way, can be described as a peripheral language used by an ethnic group called the Santals, and Sipati belongs to that ethnic group, and he has done this wonderful work of translating the Indian constitution in the Santali language so that people belonging to that group can read the Indian constitution, can know about their rights and entitlements, etc. Recently, he just returned 2 days back from a summit of world endangered languages, which was held at Spain. So Sipoti represented our institute and his former university there, and he spoke about his work there. He just returned 2 days earlier. And the School of Translation and Cultural Studies, I am on Indo, I am attached to the School of Translation and Cultural Studies. And as we can understand from the name itself, that is focusing on cultural translation, linguistic translation, issues of cultural politics, cultural industry, all sorts of things. So it has a broad spectrum of understanding cultural studies and translation. Now the activities, a very brief overview of the kind of work that we have been doing. We invited Professor Gayatri Chakraborty to speak up, who came, and we had a meeting with her on how to form the guidelines and the vision documents of ILSR, and she was kind enough to provide her inputs on that. We have our Minister of Education, who is the chairperson, since this is a purely a government institution. So the Higher Education Minister is also the chairperson of the Institute of Language Studies and Research. And recently, we completed a writing workshop where Liesl Storm came from the Berkshire College of Massachusetts from USA. Liesl left India yesterday, and she conducted the classes at the writing workshop. We also had the lecturer, Professor Brian Hatcher at Tufts University, who is a big name in the domain of South Asian studies. So he delivered a lecture on Vidyasagar, and we also had Dr. Milinda Banerjee, who is teaching at the University of St. Andrews in the United Kingdom, who also spoke on Ram Mohan Roy, the legacies of the Bangla Renaissance or the Indian Renaissance during the colonial period, and how these figures helped in the process of post-colonization in, say, early 19th century, mid-19th century, and how the process of decolonization and post-colonization picked up and, picked up the momentum and we moved forward. So these are important figures, and Brian Hatcher has written extensively on 19th century Bangla culture, religious contestations, cultural contestations, under the climate of colonial rule. So we invited both of them, and they came here, and recently Brian has published his book from the American Academy of Religion. They had a series by the Oxford University Press, and that book is coming out on the subject of polygamy as it was practiced in India at that time. So Brian has done something remarkable in that way, a path-breaking in the Bangla language, a path-breaking work which will contribute immensely in the field of South Asian studies, post-colonial studies, and decoloniality studies. Few months back, we also invited Frederick Stoyer, who is a researcher at the Max Planck Institute of Human Development, Berlin. And Frederick is a great scholar of Buddhist studies and also environmental studies, because he's looking to the Buddhist texts to understand how to respond to the contemporary problems of the Anthropocene. And we engage with him because we are currently involved in the British Library project called the British Library Endangered Archive Project. We have received the grant from the British Library, and that project is digitizing the vast repertoire of epistemic resources available at the Mahabodhi Society, which was the headquarters of the Buddhist movement in India at that time, spearheaded by someone called Dharmapala, who came from Sri Lanka. So it's not just confined to India, it has a kind of subcontinental effect. People from Sri Lanka, from Burma, from Pakistan, from different corners that came and they assembled here in Kolkata, and how that helped in the shaping of the cultural movement, religious movement, and different epistemic responses to Western colonial regime at that time. So we also had other programs related to the issue of language and technology, because nowadays people are talking about machine learning and other things and translation, but I'm not going into the details. But these are the focus areas. And recently, just tomorrow, Professor Neeraj Bose of Victoria University will be speaking again on Bengali literature, culture, and tomorrow his speech will be at 2:30, I guess. And we have called it the Haraprasad Sastry Memorial Lecture, which is a prestigious lecture series, because Haraprasad Sastry was a big name in the field of Bangla literature and culture. So Professor Ghosh will be speaking about that time, 19th century, early 20th century, literary responses to colonialism, cultural responses to colonialism tomorrow. So these are the kind of collaborative engagements that we have in terms of our exchange of ideas and knowledge transfer with different scholars across the globe and within India. Professor Anupam Bosu is a renowned man who was the director of NIT Durgapur, the National Institute of Technology Durgapur. He is a very well-known name who has combined his expertise of technology and language teaching and language learning. So also invited him. He's a nationally well-known scholar on how to combine technology and language teaching, cultural teaching. So we invited him. So we are collaborating with different sorts of scholars in that way. And this is what we had mentioned, Sripoti's achievement of the translation that I just mentioned moments back. But the current projects, ILSR is archiving language and cultural life world, Bangla as a classical language. My colleague Professor Amrita Ghosh is engaged in that project, gaining the recognition of Bangla as a classical language, because in India, as you know, Sanskrit, the moment we talk about India, the first thing that comes to our mind is the Sanskrit language, which is viewed as a classical language. But now there's a growing demand that Sanskrit is not the only classical language of India. Along with Sanskrit, we have Tamil, we have Telugu, we have Oriya, then we have Bangla. So many regional languages which are as old as perhaps Sanskrit, if not that old, but nearly as old as Sanskrit. So therefore, there are growing demands for attaining the classical lineage and classical tag for the Bangla language. This would be a big boost for speakers of Bangla and practitioners of Bangla language and literature. The next one that I mentioned is the British Library Endangered Archive Grant project that we are doing at the Mahabodhi Society in Kolkata. Then another important area of work for us is the mine of text and language multiplicities. We are identifying different mine of text. So what we mean by mine of text is an important area of debate and discussion, because when we talk about Indian literature, generally we mean the mainstream English written or Hindi written Indian literature. But along with that, we have a wonderful repertoire of different resources written in different regional and provincial languages. So we are focusing on those quote unquote minor texts, because we are debating that whether they can at all be called minor. But since scholars like David Damrose and others in the domain of world literature using the word minor text, that's why we have kept that terminology, but we are debating that at the same time. We're also connected to that, we're also doing another one, which is the minor intellectual tradition, because politically speaking, when you speak about India, immediately people think of Hindu culture, but that's again is not the only denominator. When you talk about India, there are multiplicities of cultural avenues and platforms, so we are also looking into those minor intellectual traditions, that when you talk about Indian intellectual traditions, it is not just the Sanskrit or the Hindi or the Hindu quote-unquote intellectual traditions. We have the Islamic intellectual traditions, we have, as Sripati did, the Santali intellectual traditions, the Tamil, the Telugu, the Oriya, the Bangla, different intellectual traditions, and this multiplicity, this wider spectrum will help to get a better idea of what is India. And that is also part of the post-colonial process, because when you talk about post-colonialism, it is not that one hegemonic tradition will be replaced by another one. Within India, there are different contestations of different hegemonies. So we are challenging that and trying to establish the possibility of having different intellectual traditions to be foregrounded. And other areas of research, the peripheral languages and literature, democratizing the cultural landscape, Culture and syncretism is another important area because right now in India we see ethnic conflict. If you look at the newspaper, you see what is happening in Manipur, in the northeastern part of India, Hindu-Muslim divisions, all sorts of ethnic conflicts. So we are talking about how to locate and identify the syncretic tradition that we had earlier and how that has been marginalized by the hegemony of Hindu or Hindi or Sanskritized cultural processes. So that process of demarginalization and decolonization is also in order. Along with that, we are also focusing a lot on gender and art and space. Dr. Guho herself, who is also a well-known creative writer in Bangla, she's focusing on the question of gender in the art and space. Dr. Guho will be going to Vienna next month to present her paper on what she has titled as Queer in Calcutta. So that how the queer issue has to be visibilized in a significant way. And our research scholars are also, we'll introduce them, our research scholars are also doing wonderful work on gender and idea of queer, different debates around gender, etc. So gender is also an important focus. Then of course translation, transference and epistemic justice that I mentioned. Along with that, social linguistics and embedded knowledge transfer. Because the moment we talk about knowledge transfer, we do it in a surface level, how we can go to the context and how we can think of an embedded knowledge transfer. And talking about post-colonialism, we have the Post-Colonial Studies Association of the Global South. Amrita knows about it a little bit, but for Susan and for Sandra and for Kevin, this association is doing good. I'm one of the founding members of this association. We have many members. Last year we had the annual meet. Every year we have the annual meet. Last year we had the annual meet here, and the subject was intercultural dialogues and divergent thought geographies. And we had wonderful scholars like Ayesha Irani, who teaches at University of Massachusetts, Boston. She's a great scholar in South Asian studies. We had a Bangla scholar, Shokti Nath, who's a renowned scholar on the bowls, the rural minstrel, the single string instrument we played by them. And they have a wonderful philosophy of syncretism. And then Dhamika Hera teaches at the university in Sri Lanka, and right now he's at the University of Heidelberg as a Humboldt scholar, and he spoke about the Sri Lankan issues, because at that time Sri Lanka was in the news, the ethnic conflict there. And then Dalpat Rajpurohit is sitting at University of Texas, Austin, and Dalpat has written on the syncretic traditions implemented by Emperor Akbar, and he has written a great paper called Sulhikul, the philosophy of Emperor Akbar, of how to combine all different religious epistemes together and how we can keep democratizing the religious order. This year, we are having the annual meeting of the Post-Colonial Studies Association of the Global South again at ILSR, and this year this is going to be a big event because the subject is toward world critical theory, contributions from the Global South, because we are celebrating the 100 years of the Frankfurt School Critical Theory in 2023. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to stake the claims of the Global South, because the moment we talk about critical theory, immediately the first thing that comes to our mind is the Frankfurt School and also the European theories, Anglo-American theories. But what about theories from the Global South, from different corners of the globe? So we invited Amy Allen, who is teaching at Pennsylvania State University, and Amy has written 2 great books on critical theory, challenging the hegemony of the Frankfurt School. And we've also invited Rainer Frost, who is part of the Frankfurt School, present generation Frankfurt School. And so both of them kindly accepted our invitation. So Amy will be speaking about how to broaden the spectrum, widen the spectrum, and include different epistemic interventions from the Global South and from other parts of the world. Rainer will talk about how to reformulate Frankfurt School theory. And to represent different views from the world, we have invited someone from Simona Sioni from India, then another speaker from Africa, another speaker from Uppsala University, another from Brandeis University, the other one from Nadia is from the American University of Beirut. So she'll be speaking about the Middle Eastern perspective. And last, Fabiana will be speaking from the Latin American perspective, because Fabiana is teaching at Sao Paulo University in Argentina, in Brazil, sorry. So these are the post-colonial core focus areas for us, and we are involved directly in all these things. And as part of it, as I mentioned, we celebrated a language festival for the first time in the history of West Bengal, where we invited all the speakers of different marginalized languages, and they were given the stage to speak about their languages, their literature. They didn't have the platform earlier. We did that this year itself at the beginning. And then we also archival research. We conducted one workshop, which was on archiving cultural assemblage. Professor Anne Stoller from the New School for Social Research delivered a keynote, along with that other scholars who are directly engaged with the work of archiving. They also spoke. So these are the key areas, and these are the events that we organize. I'm not going to the details of it, but we have been regularly organizing different academic events so that we can be constantly in touch about different issues involving decoloniality, post-colonialism, marginality, and representations, etc., etc. So, briefly put, this is a kind of a curtain raiser about the institute. We don't have a big team in terms of staff right now, but we are in a process of inducting other colleagues, which will be, I think, completed by this year. And so then the team will go up. But we have a wonderful team of research scholars who have great areas of research. So what we can do very quickly, introduce also by their name and what they are, and then we can come to you, and then you can open the conversation. So I think we can begin with Dr.
And Shati Guho. Now, and I'm working here as director, Institute of Language Studies and Research, and my area of research in Bangla language and literature, and I've done my PhD in stylistic studies, metaphor studies. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so you can move. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Kaina. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Kainat Ghazal. I'm a PhD scholar at ILSR, and the broad area of my research is gender studies with regard to the contemporary representation of Muslim families in India. Thank you.
This is Supla Soren. I am a PhD scholar here. I am going to work on Tagorean literature, Tagore's literature and gender studies.
Hello, I'm Krishna Srinjanadev. I'm a research scholar here. So my broad area of research is stylistics and theoretical analysis of selected Bengali fiction. Thank you. Hello, myself Nandita Mandal, and I feel very fortunate becoming a research scholar here in ILSR. And the broad area of my research is the English language teaching. Basically, my central focus is the students from the rural areas school who are of secondary standard, and English language as a second language basically, and different pedagogical issues which is maintained or not maintained in those schools by the teachers or faculties, and how they developed or how the students acquired all those pedagogical things in their English language learning, and this is so. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sonu Shah, and I am a research scholar.
Good afternoon. Myself Somnath Chakraborty. The area of my research is text editing from manuscript.
Hello, my name is Orindra Banerjee. Right now, I am working on Bengali poetry of 70s, and there are in 70s century there are so many poetry movement like Nakshal movement, Hungry movement, anti-poetry movement, postmodernism movement. And my area of research that selected four poets in 70s and their contribution in Bengali poetry.
I have Sekhar. I am independent researcher. My research area dynamic of social culture practices in Murshidabad district. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Umar Ghazali from Hooghly Muslim College, Department of Urdu. I'm also part and parcel of ILSR and working with the.
Has already mentioned, he has already introduced me. I'm a linguist by profession and an archivist by passion. I'm a world record collector and I got digitized and archived those for the posterity. Thank you.
Hello everybody, myself Dr. Manos Datto. I'm currently associated with ILSR and my research is mainly the peace and conflict studies in South Asia, both colonial and post-colonial perspectives.
I am Sudipra Chaudhary. I am connected with ILSR in different capacities, and my research area is 19th century cultural history, especially focusing on the novelistic representation of women and nationalism.
Hello, this is Murshid Alam. I teach English literature in a college in Malda district. I did my PhD on reconceptualizing the subaltern after the end of subaltern studies with the supervision of Dr. Purakayastha. And I'm associated to ILSR as part of a collaborative project on minor intellectual traditions from Bengal. Thank you.
Johar, myself Sripati Tudu. Already Dr. Purakayastha introduced me. I am working on Santali language.
Yeah, Nashima and Karubaki, may I request them also to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Karubaki Vishash. I'm associated with ILSR's Language and Linguistic Department as an affiliate scholar, and I'm about to begin my Masters in Colonial Post-Colonial Studies in Linnaeus University, Sweden this autumn.
Hello, I'm Nasima Islam. I teach at a college and I'm a PhD student at Center for Studies in Social Sciences. So mostly I'm interested in censorship studies, gender and queer studies. Right now I'm working on Mia poetry, the literary culture. I'm basically interested in the broader literary cultural enunciation of marginalized groups in the Northeast and also in Kashmir. So that's there, and I'm also associated with the Minor Text Project at ILSR. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you. So now it is over to Kevin, Sandra, and Amrita. So how do you take it forward?
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for this brilliant opportunity and an incredible welcome. I am here in Kolkata after about 15 years. I was born here. And then I guess I can call myself a poster child of post-colonial migration. So I don't know where my home is. It started here and I'm scattered in many different places between the US and Sweden and India. So it is an incredible, surreal opportunity for the first time for me to come here. I'm a scholar of literary studies, cultural studies. And my work began in the area of partition studies. That's what my doctorate is on. And from there, I see it as a long partition, as many of the scholars here would agree, or we can debate on that. as a post-colonial society in India, but my work has now concentrated on conflict zones, mainly Kashmir and the hinterlands of the border, which we will talk about later. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for us at the University of Central Florida because I see the center is absolutely dynamic and thriving in the way that you have immense breadth of topics, themes, and projects that are already going on. We three are here from specifically slightly different focus and fields, but we intersect in really important ways. And I think from the context of South Asian studies and Professor Meehan and Professor Sousa will talk about their interest and their expertise. I see this as an opportunity to create not just a dialogue, but also a global network of post-colonial studies, which has not happened before in a way because they are scattered in many places. I know Karubaki is joining the Post-Colonial Studies Center at Linnaeus, and my collaboration with Professor Purakayastha started there at Linnaeus, where I was at that time a postdoc. So there are small pockets, of course, happening in SOAS and in Sweden and, of course, in centers in the US, but a broader dialogue which creates intersectional work, Caribbean, Africa, Portuguese, English colonialism, of course, in South Asia, not just centered in India. I see that can proliferate and happen in an immense way with some kind of workshops, annual events. I think we can create a sort of structured platform where we can have exchange, not just from the global north, but from people from here coming over. And those are just some of the ideas. I think Professor Meehan and Professor Sousa can talk about another kind of vision or related visions here. Over to you.
I must say that I don't like very much to speak on microphones because I have already quite a loud voice. But I first would like to deeply thank you for having us here today. I start getting emotional because it's such a unique opportunity, and so I really thank you for having us. And we come all from different places. Actually, I came from Portugal to be here, and then I'll be back to the United States. But just speaking a little bit about my work and my route, because I always say that I'm all over the place. Actually, because I came from Portugal and took my PhD at Brown University in Portuguese and Brazilian studies. So you have already Portugal in Brazil, and then I decided to do research on Lusophone Africa, mainly on colonial literature based in Mozambique. And then I got this job at University of Central Florida, and now I'm also teaching Latin American studies, which of course Brazil is part of, but meeting Professor Kevin Meehan, I also broadened my research aspects, and I've been working with Lusophone Africa lately more, and also Afro descendants in the work of some writers from Angola and Mozambique in Portugal, and dealing also with aspects of women, gender studies, and concepts of post-memory, memory, violence, comparative work as well. Just published a volume recently called The Africas and the World in Africas, which was a project based on comparative African literature. So as you can see, I'm a little bit all over the place. So this bringing myself and thinking now broadly on Asian studies, I think I see just from being here and observing, and I've been trying to read a bit of also Indian literature, probably not the minor one, and I see connections and intersections that we can actually establish. But I also think that the first step to create this network would be putting our schools more formally also in contact and create what we call MOU. That stands for what? Exactly, I always forget that. I know MOU what it is, but then I forget it. And I don't think it will be that hard to write that out and formally have that, because then that will facilitate the going and coming back and all these workshops and having people from here and doing research there and the other way around as well. And I was speaking with Amrita, I think yesterday, and I was already thinking about doing it. Find some things in common, and we added a volume, probably Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Of course, my area is more literature, so I'm always thinking about literature and culture. Film also is an option. So I think we can do a lot of good projects that can come out of this connection. So very briefly, this is who I am. And I'm going to give it to you. Thank you. And thank you again for having us.
Okay, I want to say the same, echo those thoughts in South Asian literature, and it ended up with that Dr. Ghosh became our new colleague last year, and I never thought that I would be here this year. And this is why we needed to hire Dr. Ghosh to to make these kind of connections happen. And I'm blown away at the presentation and all of the expertise that is on display here. I think my point of view, I was trained in comparative literature, so literature across national boundaries, and I treat Caribbean literature and popular culture through that lens of comparative literature. So it's not like an English degree or a French degree or a Spanish degree. But I look at Caribbean literature and popular culture as a regional formation across languages and across national boundaries, and look at those things, literature and popular culture, as both a product of decolonization in the long frame, but also sometimes an engine of decolonization, something that produces it. I was trained as a Haitianist also, so I have a lot of experience in Haiti, and because of that, got into rural education development in Haiti, and I helped found one university and have taught at another one, but off in the countryside in Haiti. That led to also research projects in sustainable small farming. It's funny, when I get to the Caribbean, people respect my literature background, but they don't really want to talk about literature much of the time. And the thing that was most urgent in Haiti and building a rural university was small agriculture, small scale agriculture, and making it sustainable. And so I got into that field. That led to some publications. By the way, you can find all of my stuff on academia.edu if you want to look me up. Most of my PDFs, a good selection are up there. It also led to me being tagged in my department to teach literature of environmental justice. So I do environmental literature also. And by the way, in that course, I always start that course with Sultana's Dream, which is the English translation of the novella by Begum Rokhaya. So I have my little toe in Bengali writing, and want to immerse more fully in that. I also do literary translation, and I'm about to publish an English translation of a novel written in French and Guadeloupean Creole called the original Moon Laku, People from the Laku. And that has led to an interesting connection because with South Asian literature, because I got it introduced by Dr. Ghosh to a novel called The T9 by Tamil Nadu state writer from Pondicherry named Ari Gautier, and the novel I translated is called Moonlaku, and the laku is a yard, basically a yard, an urban yard in Guadeloupe. Although the yard spreads all the way across the Caribbean as an urban space, and so the Tinai is the veranda in southern India, Tamil Nadu state, and the novel looks at the culture of the Tinai and the storytelling and all of the other things that happen in the Tinai. So now I'm looking at this, and by the way, that novel also has chapters linking to Guadeloupe. So, and that puts it in my space in the Caribbean. So I'm looking at the connections, comparative connections between the yard in the Caribbean and the Tinai in South India as two different kinds of possibly decolonial urban space. I'm also a musician, and I'm working on a cultural history of the Nevis banjo, Nevis is a small island in the Eastern Caribbean, and it has a folkloric instrument that is a 4-string banjo. It's a smaller instrument, and it does not have, there's no trace of it in any of the musicology research, so I'm trying to do the oral history interviews with the musicians and the artisans that make these banjos and try to put that on the map. And then most recently, Dr. Ghosh and I, both musicians, have just sort of on a lark started a music project. And it actually seems to be taking off. And so one of the things that we are doing is looking at Tagore songs and the Robert Burns Scots folk music that some of his songs were inspired by. Tagore was inspired by Burns. And so we have a mashup kind of performance that we do, but because we're also intellectuals, we're going to intellectualize our project. And so we are working on a bit of research into Tagore and Burns and the interaction, especially looking at the music that Tagore has developed in order to present his response to Robert Burns's Scots folk music. It's kind of complicated the more we get into it, but Tagore Burns for short, trying to explore that connection. I heard a lot of the conference agenda that you outlined was impressive. I see that there are degrees being awarded here. I wanted to ask about publications. It didn't seem like there was as much information about publications, and that might be one area where we could explore and putting that into the memorandum of understanding that Dr. Sousa is mentioning. I also think Dr. Ghosh is an expert in podcasting, and if you haven't followed her podcast, you should check them out. She'll probably tell you how to do that. But I think that this group could also consider organizing podcasts as a way of circulating all of this knowledge that you're producing. And I'm also a fan of YouTube, and I think YouTube shorts and longer YouTube videos are an interesting angle to take, especially because when you get into the podcasting and YouTubes, now you're talking about things that can really represent so-called peripheral languages or minor languages in their own terms. And if that's one of the goals of the institute, I think that's. I mean, you may be already doing that. So I don't know, but I would say that's something that I'm interested in, and I think it would be a good vehicle for projecting the ideas and the scholarly content and doing it in pretty much whatever language you want to do it in. And you can talk about captioning it for audiences that may not speak the language that the presenter is speaking in. It's a good venue, I think. So I'll stop there and see where the dialogue goes. And thanks again. This is really unexpectedly amazing event for me. So I'm glad to be here.
I just wanted to add, I love the idea of a YouTube presence, but do you already have a channel on YouTube?
Not a channel as such, but we do float the events through the YouTube. I think Sripati does that. We do that. All the academic events are available on YouTube, recordings. So that is there. And yes, we are going to do that.
And I think if we are to collaborate on a larger sort of a network, a global network of post-colonial studies, in a way to have that as a channel, whether we can interview scholars or have our own programs or workshops or conferences, it is all then, it's a digital archive right there, right? So it makes it a really good spot. And the other part, Professor Sousa also mentioned, I think I'll be interested in doing some kind of publications which touches upon either an anthology or a special issue in a journal. I have a good foothold in South Asian Review and the journal Humanities, and those two venues could be very interesting to have some kind of either special issue or an anthology, which is through a university press. So we should be looking into those areas beyond the events, I think.
Right. So anything else? Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you for the perspectives, and I think it's all very well placed and well thought out. And I think all of us will completely agree with the views expressed here that there are so many areas of intersection and engagement and bridging. For example, listening to three of you, I was thinking of one area that you can immediately think of. Starting is the area of comparative literature, because three of you are engaged in the field of comparative literary studies and comparative cultural studies. You mentioned about Haiti, and I thought about, I did my Fulbright project at the University of Massachusetts Amherst on Du Bois and the Haitian Revolution came into the perspective of how to look into the question of anti-colonial across the globe, and how Du Bois inspired Ambedkar in India, and he initiated the anti-caste movement in India. In fact, Du Bois was approached by Ambedkar to take up the issue of caste to the United Nations. They corresponded with each other. So these intersections are there, and there are enough scopes of archival research. Recently, I was writing a book on a very well-known Bengali fiction writer and a poet, and I discovered that he had enough similarities with Fernando Pessoa. I don't know how to pronounce it. So there are so many areas of commonalities, similarities, convergences, intersections. I think there are possibilities of doing that. But all the suggested modes can work perfectly well. But I'll begin with the question of publication, because that is something we attach a lot of importance, and our scholars have, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, because most of them are beginners, they're learning, but some of them have got very good publications. And I know, talking about spatial issue, that Musha and Nashima has recently contributed to the pandemic in terms of the so-called understanding. They have contributed there. So I think in that way, can approach the spatial issue on South Asian literature, comparative literature, post-colonial studies. In the current conjuncture, how we can think of new perspectives there. So that can be done. And podcasts, you also mentioned about YouTube and podcast talks and collaborative or joint convening of workshops and seminars that can definitely be done. And talking about what Sandra mentioned about MOUs, so yes, that the finer point, the blueprints, and all those can be chiseled out, can be worked out. It will perhaps take a few more days. You can write a draft and can send that to you, and then you can work on it, fine tune it, can change it, and edit it, and can get back, and then I think it can be finalized. But the areas that you mentioned, these are the areas that we can definitely think of, because in Bengali literature, film is an important area. You mentioned about your interest in films, so that can also, because in India, we have in Kolkata, for example, we have the film festival, international film festival, and from all countries, film directors will come to screen their films from Portugal, from Spain, from Latin American, other Latin American countries. So film studies can be an important area of collaborative work, I guess. We can also, this is a suggestion, think about it, if possible, occasionally, I know that all of you are very engaged and you have your own schedules, we can also think of 1 or 2 lectures, if you agree, in the PhD course or classes, online Zoom class, so that these scholars will also be benefited, right? So you can speak about your area of research and they can have an overview. There will be more gateways to further research in different areas. So that can be another possibility, right? And publications and all those things, we can explore the possibilities of areas of comparative research and comparative literature. And yes, so I think these are the ways that we can begin with, and we can begin with a draft. You can send that to you. And as I said, you can put your views on that, you can edit, and then we can proceed in that way. I think one way to begin, because we just have got 5 more months left in 2023, so we can think of one event in 2023, and that can be kind of a kickstart event where it can be a colloquium or a workshop or one-day event where we can introduce the thematic of how we are planning the idea of a global network of post-colonial studies and why we are thinking about the global network of post-colonial studies. Because when you talk about comparative literature, countries like Mozambique, because we know about Nigerian literature, we know about Kenyan literature, but countries like Mozambique, Haiti, they're not that way well represented in the Indian curriculum. So I think that will also contribute for our scholars to widen their horizon of reading. And we can contribute by talking about South Asian literature. We can say deliver 1 or 2 talks if possible and if needed on South Asian literature, current trends in South Asian literature, new voices in South Asian literature. Because in post-colonial studies, generally we find that post-colonial scholars across the globe, when they're talking about Indian literature, they're only dealing with big names like Tagore, Mahasweta Devi. They don't go beyond those big names. So we can introduce new voices, and that can offer fresh perspectives in South Asian studies. Translation can also, as I said, translation can also be an important area of contribution. We can think of translating jointly, if possible. And as I said, that his name is Nabarun Bhattacharya. He is the son of Mahasweta Devi. He has clear commonalities with Fernando Pessoa. So I was surprised to see that. There are so much similarities, but we had no idea about it. So who knows that there can be many such examples. So I think we can begin in that. Yes.
Sounds very good.
Okay.
So will we wait for some kind of a draft from you, and then amongst the 3 of us, we coordinate and then figure out the next steps and when we can have a colloquium? A little bit of preparation is needed, so we figure out the timelines for both the places. Yes, works for everybody.
So as soon as we get
Okay.
we'll look at the calendar.
So that we can introduce in the first semester as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I do like, Professor Purakayastha, the idea of why the global network of post-colonial studies, and then how it can then be created for the benefit of everybody, scholars and faculty.
And since we already have the Post-Colonial Studies Association of the Global South in place, we can also involve them as part of this drive, and we can invite scholars from, say, Haiti, scholars from Mozambique, from Portugal, from other countries of South America, So that way we can truly call it the global network of postgraduate. Okay, fine.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
I wanted to just, all the people that I heard from up and down the table here, I would love to open it up for a minute or two and see if any of the research scholars have something to say about what they would like to see in such a collaboration.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. So this is exactly the idea. How our research scholars would like to, or our research associates who are to a certain extent affiliated to ILSR in different capacities, how they would like to respond to these proposals that we just discussed. So, what do you think about this? Yeah. Feel free. I mean, if you can speak in Bangla as well if you have problems. So you can. Yeah, Nashima, you can begin with that.
So the history of any country, I'm talking about India here, essentially is represented or told by the upper class, upper caste, privileged, not probably like economically, but socially, socio-culturally. So how do they make sure, especially voices of people in the peripheries, or like you said, Kashmir or your Nagaland, how does their history come through? Like, if we can think about conversations that can be created between them and us, and their voices, like their history can be told, their idea of freedom being told by them.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and to me the answer would be, or the striving would be to get scholars from these areas. I would want their voices to be highlighted in specific ways. So if we can manage that from very specific spaces, certain caste, conflict zones, even marginalized communities right now, I know obviously all of us are privy to what's happening in a way, so we want to make sure that the marginalized groups have to be given space. So invitations, I think Professor Purakayastha, you just spoke about, having other parts of the world that are not necessarily in the curriculums, but maybe within the national context also that can be arranged.
Yeah, other responses, perspectives?
I think translation can be, as you have already mentioned, an important area of future project. Professor Kevin is teaching Rokia Sakawat Hossain. I did not know that she is being taught in that university, so that's a welcome news for me. Maybe we can.
The translator works with us at UCF, the English translator.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so maybe we can translate some of our other works, or maybe other feminist scholars or thinkers from India or South Asia. So maybe we can build a group or network from other states of India, and maybe we can take the thinkers from those states, and we can translate. In that way, we can globalize the thinkers from the global South. And talking about publication, Professor Purakayastha, I think, forgot to mention that we also have a journal called Kairos, a journal of critical symposium, which is the flagship journal of Post-Colonial Association of the Global South. So maybe we can also offer special issues there on different relevant topics. So that can be one area. And another fantastic idea is the idea of podcast. I think we in India are not accustomed to this idea, because academics are not that much familiar. Yeah, you have already started. That's great. So maybe we can expedite that and bring in people and build a network of like-minded people, and we can share our ideas. Thank you.
I really love the idea of the podcast, and I don't know if I should mention it now, but I am in the process of starting up a podcast with Wire India, who are really trying to
gather a network of academics and people who do some kind of different alternative work in the Indian context, but also involving other South Asian spaces. So I'm going to start something from August, and again, I'm speaking before it has started, but we have signed a contract, so I guess I can say it. So the name of the podcast will be Salty Chai, in solidarity with Kashmir, and it would be inviting per episode one speaker from a certain South Asian context. But it's not just limited to South Asia. We can have different kinds of thinkers, filmmakers, artists, musicians, definitely academics with really important work that is happening right now, to create a different kind of forum and space where, again, I jotted down, the idea of knowledge transfer is not just limited to academic symposiums and articles, to really branch out in a way that is important and filters in people beyond academia also. So that is happening. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and we can definitely talk about collaborating and maybe live streaming this event on August 5th. I will be in conversation, which will be happening live with Perumal Murugan and his translator, because he wants a translator at the event, on his latest work, Pyre, which was longlisted for the Booker Prize. So I will be in conversation. It will be India time 9:30, and I will be at that time within the US, so it will be noon, 12 o'clock in US time, but it will be in collaboration with University of Connecticut, but open worldwide because this is going to be a live streaming event. But if we can coordinate with ILSR in a way where this is coming to us here also, and I'm also saying us in a way where here it is all of us, I think that would be a great opportunity because it's about translation, it is about caste discrimination and brutal caste violence that is happening, and obviously he's a terrific writer, controversial, polemical, and much needed, right? So maybe we can factor this particular event also in some kind of way. 5th of August, 9:30 p.m. India time, and I know it's late, but if we can.
Where do we get the link to the live here? Because I have written a paper on Perumal Murugan in the context of censorship studies. So I dealt with his novel called One Part Woman.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm very interested in what he does, and as you rightly said, he's that academic hyphen activist. I love his work. It's very polemical but very refined. And
extremely.
Yeah.
I think then maybe if the researchers and students are interested, we should perhaps put the link out as a sort of first collaborative. That is brilliant. We must have this then, right? We'll talk about how to create this already.
That will be much appreciated.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Others? Any suggestions?
Also, I had a comment,
Yeah, sure.
very modest comment to make. People like us who are trying to work on, let's say, very controversial topics such as poetry or conflict zones like Kashmir and everything. So, off the record, but we're often, it's very hush-hush, there's very hush-hush about it. So people say, why don't you choose something which is safe, which is, which won't land you in any kind of trouble and anything. So, if some sort of exposure can be made where we are exposed to better opportunities and some sort of safe space is provided where we feel morally encouraged to take up such topics which are not safe. So
you and I have a conversation to have.
Please really love to have that conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Others? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I would also like to add that my research also revolves around Kashmiri families, Kashmiri Muslim families, because it is very important to look at their life and how the prejudices that has been attached with the Muslim families per se is affected, and to what extent is it true or different from the rest of India and the Kashmiri families. So, and another thing that I would like to propose is how about we get some scholars from these regional areas who know the language. I'm saying this in the context of translation, right? So it will be easier and we can make a better translation if we have certain scholars coming who are speaking these tongues, and even they can offer some minor voices So it will be like a very interesting collaboration with them as well, and it will offer a kind of exposure to those scholars as well who are coming from the peripheral places. So yeah.
Thinking and listening to the scholars, I think another idea can be, and this is again a suggestion, in terms of knowledge transfer, that sometimes we have a problem of access to knowledge and information about the kind of good academic events being organized in the USA or Europe, where our scholars can present their papers. There is a problem with this easy flow of information. So, as part of the MOU, this can also be the kind of flow of information, because that would help. That would help them to identify areas, identify journals, identify platforms where they can present their papers.
Because nowadays, since COVID, more and more these conferences are being open also they can be face to face, but some of them open an online part of it. Like I just participated in Canada and it was a mixed mode conference. I was in Lisbon, but some of my colleagues and friends actually went to Canada, so I prefer this time to stay and not travel. So that type of information can also be useful, I think, because we live in this open world more and more, right?
So that can help. And in post-colonial studies, I think all scholars presented, they would agree that we have big names like P.S. Naipaul and others, Caribbean studies and other things. This can also be a part of the MOU where we can think of new authors who are doing well in Portuguese studies, Caribbean studies, whom we can introduce in our curriculum. That can the two-way traffic that we can think of. We can offer, we can suggest some names of South Asian scholars and authors. And you can also suggest some names whom we can introduce in our curriculum. That can also be done. Okay, so we can have, we're running out of time, so we can have one more suggestion if possible. Yeah. Yes.
When we are talking about lands, like border lands and all, so there are oceans and rivers also, and there are people whose lives are dependent on it. I can think of Manik from the Organuddin Mazi, or there are some good literature, good Bengali literature. So I think we need to emphasis on their lives, because their life and their culture is very different. Also, like Penny Peru's courses are there, so I think we need emphasis on their lives, so in translations.
Thank you. Kullan, any suggestions that you can give?
I teach at President's University English Department. I was wondering if search for alternative epistemologies from the global south, something that has been going on for quite some time. People like Sundar Sarukai, the philosopher, has been associated with such projects. In many such projects, we often tend to replicate the hegemonic Western modernity framework, even though the rhetoric is that we are actually excavating alternative epistemologies. So conceptually, I think we need to be a little more self-reflexive and try not to create bridges between the essentialist epistemological traditions in the West as well as epistemological traditions that are essentialist, foundationalist in the East, because that's what has been happening till now. So day before yesterday at Presidency in my department, we organized a panel discussion on post-humanism, and Professor Devashri Banerjee from California was there, and they were talking about Vivekananda and Aurobindo. But I was, because I work on Ambedkar and Dalit studies and stuff like that, so I was wondering if we can create bridges between, let's say, Buddhism and American pragmatist philosophy, something that we probably need to be increasingly doing in our search for a global post-colonial kind of chain of interactions. And that's something that I would like to look forward to. And I think, of course, we need to create archives and have projects But conceptually, I think this is something that you need to be a little more careful about, because intellectual exchanges between these foundational schools in the East and the West have been happening for quite some time, for centuries in fact, and that has paved the way for different kinds of linguistic political narratives in our country, in South Asia, and also the West. And we know the references that I imply. And so I think it is probably high time for us to think of creating such liaisons, such connections. And I'm not sure whether that can be done through a particular project or there is enough funding for that and so on and so forth, because the state funding is almost negligible in many cases. So probably as academicians we must think of such projects increasingly, at least at the conceptual level, and then think about the other pragmatic concerns, money, etc., as we go ahead. But that conceptual framework, that kind of self-reflexivity has to be there, undercutting all the efforts that we are going to do. Just thinking aloud, if that could be something that you can keep in mind as you go ahead.
Thank you. So that thinking aloud is necessary. Yeah. So and this is the thank you for the perspective, because that is exactly what we need. And this is the journal that Musha mentioned. This is the official journal of the Postcolonial Studies Association of the Global South. We have been publishing many special issues. The 2022 one was on emergency literature, emergency aesthetics. And we have a new call for paper on Ramajit Guha and the Global South. He has recently passed away. He was the doyen of the Suburban Studies collective. So we have been doing this for quite a long time. And this paper was quite well received. And we have the archives where you can see the other issues. The network is a little problematic now, but then, yeah. So I think there is a problem with the network. But then we have been, it has opened. So I think we can have a look at this Ghana in transition. That was another issue in 2022. There was a book forum on decolonizing theory. That was also very well received. Then the book forum on Russell West Pavlov's very influential book, The Global South and Literature. We had contributions from different scholars from Oxford University, from Columbia and others. They contributed and agreed to contribute. We had the special issue on populism in the post-colonial, text, context, and media. So that is a part of the culture studies research that we were doing at that time. And the moving centers and traveling cultures was selected papers from a conference at Frankfurt that was published here, and it was case edited by three scholars who were doing their research at Frankfurt University at that time. And there are open issues and there are special issues. The special issue, Cultures of Violence in South Asia, is the one that came out in the form of this book. So this was the kind of genesis point of this book, where we published some papers, but then we invited other contributors to write on the question of violence in South Asia. So that is, in terms of publication, this is also something that we have been doing consistently. And we can think of a special issue on the global network of historical studies of ILSR as well. So one platform is already available, so that can be utilized. Yes. So, okay, so if three of you have anything to say, otherwise we can,
Is there any tension around the use of the word post-colonial?
Yes. So that is also debated because we have been, as Colin said, that essentialist notions are to be challenged. So constantly we debate that what is post-colonial, because as I said moments back, that when we talk about post-colonialism, there are issues of neo-colonialism within India in terms of the caste discriminations, the ethnic problems that we have. For example, recently in Manipur, as you might be aware about it, what is happening in Manipur. So there are different complex issues involved when we are doing post-colonial research in India, located in India, there are issues of caste conflicts, religious conflicts, ethnic conflicts, gender issues, regional discriminations, various other issues are involved. So when we talk about the post-colonial, we are also questioning the questions of power and distribution of power, power relations within India as well. It's not just targeting the former colonizers. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can have a 10 minutes break for tea, and then we can resume on the conversation on borders, right? Okay, so we get back after, 15 minutes, I think that will be better, 15 minutes. We get back after 15 minutes at 4:25.